So if you haven't noticed the slide, sit at a table with no fewer than 3 people, no more than 5 people. And you should know that these are the people that are going to be in your project group. So don't sit with people you don't like, unless you want to be in a project group with people you don't like, in which case sit with people you don't like. Out of curiosity, who's sitting at a table with people that they know everybody at the table already? Anybody? Oh, hey. Anybody know everybody at their table already? Anybody listening? You know everybody at your table already? Oh, okay. But you are listening. Perfect. Perfect. Sit at a table with no more than 5 people, no fewer than 3. This should work mathematically, I think. If not, somebody will have to stand outside. Yeah, just find a table that doesn't have 5 people at it already. I'm purposefully starting 2 minutes late to give people that arrive late a chance to find a table. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 4 here, there's 4 here. All right. So, all right, who's near the door? What's your name, Green Hoodie? With a bear on the front? Is that a bear? Yeah. Cool. Where are you from, Eric? Leicester. Eric, you're the bouncer. If people come in and they look like they're going to sit at a table with more than 4 people at it, you should tell them to sit at a table with 4 people or fewer, but not less than 3. All right, because that slide won't be up forever. But for now, it's up. All right, time to start. Okay, so group project. These are your project groups. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 people at that. You can join that group. You're just scoping for a better group. That's all right. It could have been I was bad at counting. All right. Is anybody at a table where they hate the people at their table? Because if you are, you should get up and move now. Perfect. All right. The room, it's weighted heavier on this side. Is that weird? No, that's not weird. Okay, so remember this table. It's the table you're going to sit at when you come here again, unless one of the groups over here wants to shift to one of the closer tables, that's fine. But sit together. So find a table that has 4 fewer people at it. Do they all have 5?
I think so.
Is it a thing?
Well, unless over there.
There you go. Perfect. There's a 4 over there. There should be 72 people in the class. That's divisible by 5, right? 72 is the limit. I actually don't know how many people are in the class. All right, we'll get started. And if we cannot keep the rules, I would rather have a group of 6 than a group of 1. Is there any tables with 4 people still? All right, we get to have a group of 6 then. You can join another table. Unless there's a splinter group of 3 that wants to split off somewhere. No. Okay. All right, let's go. All right, so the most of the class is going to be about manufacturing processes. Most of the class we're going to talk about the making part of manufacturing. This class project is going to blend the making part with the business part a little bit though. So what we're going to do as a group, each group is going to decide exactly what they need and how much it's going to cost to start a machine shop business. Right? So most manufacturing happens at small machine shops or small manufacturing businesses. And so you in your group are going to decide exactly what you need to start that business so that you could come to a banker or a finance person or a venture capitalist and say, hey, we need this much money to start our business. And this is what we're going to do to earn the money to pay it back. So I want to talk for just a few minutes about what goes into doing this. And then we're going to do some group exercises, work together on this. And this document is called Group Project ME 1800 C23. So sit at a table that does not have 5 people at it. Does not have 6 people, sorry. So don't make a table have 7 people. And note that that's going to be your project group. Those are the people you're going to work with for the rest of the for the term on the project. And table that he sits at. Well, that's not the button I wanted to unshare. Totally wasn't what I wanted to do. I'll share that again. Desktop. Table that he sits at. Note that this is the guy that comes to class late. All right, over here. Make sure that I'm not sharing that screen. There. All right, so if you're watching from home, you don't have to look at the screen right now. All right. So just find a table. Don't make it have 7 people at it. All right. So if we're going to have our machining, is somebody really good at taking notes? Anybody in the class really good at taking notes? All right. Does anybody in the class understand the term taking notes? Okay, perfect. You had your hand up. You get your computer open? So you could make a list of things that we talk about so that I don't have to make the list and talk at the same time? Okay, perfect. So if we want to have our business, we're going to start a business. We're going to be entrepreneurs, start our business. What is it that we have to have first? Somebody in the class shout out. What do you got? Money. No, we don't need money first. We don't need any money at all. What do you got? An idea. We need an idea first. Okay. And so I'm telling you now that the idea is, so we need an idea, right? That goes in the notes. I'm telling you now that the idea is that we're going to start a machine shop. Why should we start a machine shop? Yes. Oh, because we personally want to own more machines? I've seen people do it for that reason, actually. I've seen people start a business because they wanted to buy a machine tool because they wanted to own one. So you mean we want to make machines, not buy them?
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Over here. We want to be able to add value to a product. So the first thing we think of when we think of this is we could start any business, right? We could open a bakery. We could do one of these online businesses. We could become online influencers, right? So we could become like professional TikTokers and have our channel and do all that stuff. We could do that. And that, I don't know, that'd be fun for like 45 minutes, I think. But when we have a manufacturing business, now manufacturing, remember, takes raw materials, does a process to them, makes them more valuable. So that process we do that makes them more valuable, it actually adds wealth, right? It creates wealth that didn't exist before. So one of the reasons we wanted to have our manufacturing business is because it creates wealth that didn't exist before. How much of that wealth, where do you think that wealth goes when we create it? Yes.
It gets divided amongst the owners of the company.
So it gets divided, the owners of the company, people that finance the creation of the company. Typically in a CNC machining type business, about 50% of the new wealth goes to the people that did the work. About 50% of that new wealth that got created goes to the owners, and they use that to pay themselves, and they pay off their debt and their things like that that they use to create the business. But about 50% of it goes to the people who did the work. Whereas if you were a TikToker and you had your guys on Fiverr that are editing your videos for you and stuff like that, you're keeping most of that wealth yourself, right? And it's arguable whether or not you're creating wealth. Maybe you're just trading it back and forth. I don't know. That's arguable. But so one of the reasons I like this manufacturing business is because half of what we have created goes to the people that did the work. So it's sort of altruistic. It's kind of a create this manufacturing business. Now, why is this a good time to create a manufacturing business? Anybody know? Yeah. Well, all right. So there's been supply chain issues. So, and we've all experienced that, right? It's hard to get things. That is part of it, and that's why people are thinking about it right now, for sure. Why else would now be a great time to build a manufacturing business?
It's relatively recession-proof, and it looks like we're...
They are arguably relatively recession-proof, assuming you're making stuff that people want to buy throughout, right? Actually, my wife worked at Tiffany and Company. So that's a jeweler, right? Jewelry company. Well, they're a manufacturing company. They manufacture the jewelry and sell it to people. And during the, remember the big, well, you guys don't remember, but you've heard about this big crisis in like 2008, right? And everybody lost all their money and all that stuff. I think when she went to work there just before that, and through that crisis, they went from being a $1 billion company to a $9 billion company. I argue that rich people are still rich and they still buy fancy jewelry. But yeah, so manufacturing could be a recession-proof business. So that's actually not the main reason I would pick, though. The main reason is because most of them are owned and operated by people that are 67 years old or 72 years old. I met somebody that was still going into work every day running their machine shop, 82 years old. So a lot of these businesses are closing. But the amount of work, the volume of work that's being done in these kind of businesses is actually growing. If you look at like the GDP statistics and all that stuff, the amount of work that's happening in these kind of businesses is increasing. The number of these kind of businesses is falling. So it seems like this is a great reason to create a manufacturing business. Yeah.
Some machine shops sell like, drills, but in machine too, they also sell like a blending machine.
So some people make stuff and they sell a product. Most of them, and the kind that we're going to talk about, if you had a design, you would come to us and say, can you make our product? And then we would give you a price, and then we'd negotiate that price, and then we'd make that. So what I'm talking about is a job shop, but certainly there's manufacturing companies that make their own products and sell them too.
Are you in the machine shop? You're only making like components of a product, right? Like
Typically, we're only making components of a product, but I know a bunch of people that they do the whole assembly and manufacture and everything, and they put the whole product together. Then they ship it to you, the customer, and you, the customer, maybe like puts the sticker on it, and you say assembled in the USA, right, or assembled in my backyard, right? So you might do some of the last steps if you're the OEM. Some parts are 100% made by the manufacturer, shipped to the end customer. The person who owns the part never actually sees it. So it could be both things. But what I'm talking about primarily here is we're going to have people giving us orders for parts. We're going to figure out how to make those parts. We're going to make those parts. We're going to ship those parts to the people, and our customers are going to be other businesses. So, I mean, there's different kinds of ways to do it. We could have our customers be end consumers, and we could make consumer products. We could do all kinds of things. But for the business we're going to look at, this model we're going to look at, and we call that a job shop in the industry. So it's a shop. A lot of people think a job shop would be like a shop where you could go to find a job. Like it's like recruiters or hiring people. But no, a job shop is this kind of machine shop where you've got maybe 100 different customers. Maybe 10 of those 100 customers give you most of the work that you do. And you'll be typically, well, depending on how big your business is, you'll be typically in one or two closely related industries. And so we could be making components for medical devices, right? So the end product might be a medical device that's either hospital grade or consumer grade, and we're making the parts that go into that. Somebody else is assembling it, selling it. Or we'll be making components for the aerospace industry. So we may be making parts that go inside jet engines. We might be making, several years ago, Airbus announced that they had, I can't remember how many thousands of tons of 3D printed parts that were going in the airplanes they were producing that year. It was a big press announcement, and they were talking about how cool it was and all that. Anybody know what the part was?
Handles.
It was the handle for the latch on the overhead bin. So they weren't really high stress parts. They weren't the parts that were holding the wings on, stuff like that. That has to do with just we don't really know the fatigue properties of 3D printed materials yet. And when you look at like airplane wings, they're doing this all the time. And so there's a lot of fatigue loading there, and you don't want them to fall off. It's bad.
Speaking of airplane wings, I actually saw a video on YouTube somewhere, like the airplane wings, apparently the Airbus are a lot stiffer. On the Boeing are more flexible.
Yeah, that may be true. I don't know that much about that design. All right, so if we're doing this kind of work as a class now, one of the things, this is going to be important to note. One of the things I'm going to want your group to decide is what industry would you like to serve? Okay, so that's a decision your group's going to make. What industry would you like to serve? Now, the examples of this are things like so aerospace industry, defense industry. There's a lot of overlap between aerospace and defense if you're making aerospace parts for defense type vehicles, right? Firearms. If you go to Western Massachusetts, Western Central Connecticut, almost all of the machine shops out there make firearms, or make components for firearms, rather, not the firearms themselves, because, I mean, this is where we make guns in the United States. So what else could it be? Medical devices. What other industries do you think we might serve? Robotics industry. We might serve the robotics industry. We might serve the automotive industry. That's actually sort of the backbone of how all of these machine shops came to exist, really, was serving like the automotive industry and the aerospace industry. What other sectors might we want to serve? Agricultural. So all those big farm tractors and all the stuff that happened, I saw this movie, and they were on in agriculture, in like big farms. Yeah, they get this tractor that drives up, and they clamp onto the edge of the tree, and then like they turn off this massive vibrator thing on the arms of the tractor, and all the almonds just fall down to the ground. That's pretty cool. Anybody seen a blueberry harvester? That's a New England thing. Yeah, so it's pretty amazing how they do these things. So yeah, you could serve the agriculture industry. Now, if we're starting our business, this is the key factor. How big is it going to be when we start? It's going to be small, right? Most of the times when I see a business like this start, it's one person, one machine in their garage, and they have a full-time job working at somebody else's machine shop. And what they're doing in their garage is on the weekends, they're making some extra parts that their boss is letting them make and paying them. And that's how they start. And then they'll buy a second machine. And then maybe they'll hire somebody to help run the machine. And maybe they'll quit their job. A lot of them build up that way. But we've got teams of 5 and 6 people, right? So you guys can start with 5 employees if you want. You'll have to figure out how you're going to feed each of you, how everybody's going to eat. But so usually these businesses start with like 1 or 2 people. Frequently it'll be like 2 people get together. And maybe they both work at the same machine shop. And they say, we're going to get together, we're going to buy some machines, and you're going to quit and go run the machines and make money. And I'm going to stay here and still get paid so that, we have a fallback plan. I've seen that happen when people start these businesses. And one guy I know, he was working at a business in a machine shop. He decided he was going to do the garage thing. So he's buying a machine, put it in his garage. He's going to make some parts after hours, the weekends, whatever. And he was borrowing money to buy the machine. So he goes to get the loan. He tells him, my boss does not know I'm doing this. You cannot call the place where I work and confirm my employment. Of course, the bank doesn't listen. They call up the place where he works and say, hey, does so-and-so work here? He's trying to get a loan to buy I forget what machine it is. And they're like, well, he used to work here. And when he got to work the next day, all of his toolboxes were in the parking lot. They fired him. But that won't happen to you. I won't fire you for deciding to start your own machine shop. Okay, so we're going to pick the industry. We're going to pick who's going to work at the business and what jobs they're going to do. So you've got a team, so you can actually fill a lot of these roles. What are the jobs that people are going to have to do at a business like this? So we're going to be a job shop. We're going to make parts that other people have designed, and we're going to ship those parts to those people. And hopefully they're going to pay us, and then we're going to, pay off the loans for our machines and all that stuff. What are the jobs that have to happen at a place like that? So one of the jobs is this handling of logistics. So it's shipping and receiving, right? So you have to receive materials that come in. You have to ship out finished parts. So that's certainly a job responsibility. That's a role that somebody's going to have to fulfill. Now, when it's one person, they do all the jobs. But you should know what the different jobs are, right? So we've got to do some shipping and receiving to run a business like this. Yeah. Somebody's got to actually do, somebody has to run the machines. All right, so we have operations, we have shipping and receiving. What else is a job that we have to do? So we might have to do some marketing. Now, people often say sales and marketing. You've heard that thrown around before? Do you think we should have sales and marketing be one thing, or should they be 2 separate things? We're building our company, we get to decide, right? But there's got to be a marketing aspect. People have to know that we exist. There's got to be a sales aspect, right? So we can put sales and marketing. We'll let the team decide how they're going to shift these things up. So we've got logistics, we've got operations, we've got marketing. What else do we have to do? Yes. We've got to have some quality assurance, right? We're going to have a quality manager. We're going to have a quality plan. So it turns out you can't do work for most OEM businesses unless you can hand them a copy of your quality manual. And so these are the things we do every time in order to make sure they don't send you bad parts. So we're going to have a quality department. What else are we going to have? Yes. We're gonna have to have somebody that does finance and accounting, right? So we've got so far. We've got logistics, we've got operations, we've got quality, we've got finance. Is that everything we said so far? Marketing, sales. What other roles do we have to fill?
Maybe something to do with labor as well.
It's in the operations, right? So that's the role of operations, is doing that labor. Is there anything else we have to be able to do? Yeah. HR. You know, that's not what they call it here at WPI. We have a Department of Talent and Diversity. We don't have human resources anymore. We also have acquisition strategists. Do you know that WPI has a director of talent acquisition strategy and 3 people that report to that director? We're very strategic about our hiring. Okay, but that's off topic. You probably don't need a strategic director for talent and acquisition when you've got your team doing all this work. Is there anything else that we have, any other roles that we have to have? Yeah. So someone needs to buy the stock. So purchasing. So we had finance, but yeah, you must have been dozing. Legal stuff. We'll probably outsource that. We'll probably hire a lawyer, but yeah, we're going to have to be aware of legal stuff. And so what kind of legal stuff would we have? Well, there's licensing. There's contracts, licensing, things like that. What else? So we might want to become certified by ISO. So and depending on what industries we're going to serve, there's different certifications required. Right? I said most of the machine shops in Western Massachusetts do some bit of manufacturing firearms components. Well, there's certain components that you need a federal firearms license to manufacture, and there's certain components that you don't need a firearms license to manufacture. By the way, if you have a firearms license, there can be no felons working at your business, even if they don't touch any of the firearms things. So if somebody gets arrested or you can't hire these people, I've known people that have had to ship an order, and it was really important to ship the order to an important customer, and it had to ship today. And the only person who could actually make the parts that worked at the company was in jail. So they have to go bail somebody out of jail to come finish the parts so they could ship to their customer, right? So it's not a common thing. It happens. But it doesn't happen when you have a firearms license. Because if you keep that person on, maybe if it was a misdemeanor, it's probably okay. I don't know. Anyway, so there's different licenses that you're going to have. Can you read back our list of roles? Oh, wait. Hold on. Before you read back the list, that way it'll get captured.
Okay. We have shipping and receiving, operations, sales and marketing, quality assurance, finance/accounting, I think HR, stockkeeping, and legal.
Okay. Did we miss anything important?
Depending on what, I don't know, it depends. If you want to grow, you do need some form of development.
So business development kind of thing?
Business development mixed with R&D, it might not be that.
Business
important.
development, R&D, maybe not R&D so much at the job shop type business. I agree. If you have a product you're selling, you're going to have to do that R&D kind of work. And maybe that falls under marketing, maybe it doesn't. I think we've missed an obvious one that everybody in this room should have said first.
IT?
Yeah, we're all smart. We're going to do our own IT, but yeah, IT is a thing. Operations, I think. We'll cover that. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember the first business card, CEO on it. In fact, I was very proud of that job title that I made up for myself when I started the company. I didn't just put CEO, I spelled it out. Right? Chief Executive Officer. And when I looked at him later, I was like, oh, maybe that font was too big too. But yeah, I do all these online courses and read all the books about being a CEO. You know what it doesn't say at all? About emptying the trash, about cleaning the toilets, about loading and unloading and being that logistics person with the forklift. There's not anywhere in any of the hype that you learn about being a CEO. But yeah, so you're going to need some of that management, that upper level management decision making kind of stuff. So you need that, and also emptying the toilets, plunging, scrubbing, all that stuff has to happen too. And we call that maintenance probably. And some of it might be machine tool maintenance, some of facilities maintenance, all that stuff. I think there's one important thing that we missed. Yeah, you're thinking too Google. We're thinking more machine shop. We're gonna sit on the picnic table outside, eating our peanut butter and jelly sandwich out of our paper bag, probably.
Someone to run everything.
Well, that's the machinist operations, all that stuff.
Basically an owner.
An owner, yeah. So I think I said that when we talked about janitors, because we're going to need the CEO that's going to be able to be the janitor. So the owner operator person, yeah.
We need customers.
We are absolutely going to need customers, but we're not hopefully going to be them unless mom and dad got deep pockets and we're just going to make stuff for ourselves. In which case, hey, that sounds like fun. So we will need that, but we're talking just about the people right now, the things that people need to do. And so it'll become clear to you the thing we forgot when we switch topics. So draw a line or whatever. Now we're going to talk about what happens at our business. So we've talked about who the people are, but how does our business make money? What do we get paid for? Yes. So we do turn raw materials into product. Is that actually what we get paid for? We do that work. It's required. We must do it. But why does the customer pay us? Yes. Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about at the moment when they're writing the check. Why did they write the check?
What we give them works.
What we give them works. Yeah, I think it's a little bit before that, but sure. Oh, so they want the thing we make. That's why they ordered it from us. But they don't give us the money when they order it from us. They give us the money 90, 120 days after we shipped it to them. And so we actually get paid for mailing the invoices. I mean, if you haven't taken the materials and turned them into something of value, you won't have anything to have shipped to the customer, and they probably won't respond to your invoice if you haven't shipped them anything. So all those steps are required. We actually get paid for mailing the invoice. That was one of the things I also learned when I was an early business owner. You don't get paid for knowing anything or doing the work. You get paid for mailing the invoice. All right. So that's the last step. We get paid when we mail the invoice. What do we have to have done before we can mail the invoice? Well, we have to have shipped the parts. Right? Do we want to ship bad parts? So we're going to work back through the steps. So we want to get paid, so we're going to mail an invoice. Before we mail the invoice, we have to ship the parts. Before we ship the parts, we should do some kind of a quality inspection, right? So before we can do the quality inspection, we have to make the parts. All right, so there's that make step. Before we can make the parts, oh, this is back to what we talked about a week ago. What do we have to do before we can make the parts? Yes. So we have to have gotten the design, but that's way up the tree if we're stepping backwards. Do we want to start now at the design level? Or we want to start going forwards, or we want to keep going backwards? So before we can make the parts, we have to have a plan for how we're going to make the parts, right? And our plan has got to include how we're going to fixture the parts and how we're going to set up the machine and all the tooling, right? So before we can make the parts, we're going to have fixturing. We're going to have the ability to do fixturing. We're going to have tooling. So we're going to have the cutting tools that actually go through the material and remove material, because we decided we're going to be a machine shop. We're going to have machine tools, right? We're going to have machine tools. So we've got tooling, fixturing, machine tools. The machine tools are going to have power and stuff like that. We'll get to that in a minute. And then before that, we have to have a plan. Who makes the plan? If you go back up to the people list, I think we need to have an engineer. We could call the engineer the engineer. We could call it the programmer. We could call it the operations manager, and maybe that was covered in operations. But we're going to have to do some kind of engineering work. And all right, so we've got that program. We've created our plan, and we've got our program. We've got all our stuff. Before that, our sales and marketing people work. So our sales and marketing people are going to get people to send us designs, right? When we receive the design, how do we know how much to charge the customer? How do we know how much to charge the customer?
How much it costs to do all the operation?
We're going to have to estimate the cost of doing the work, right? So our engineer is going to do estimating, programming, and those steps right there. And then before that, we got our sales and marketing. We're driving that out. We're doing business development a lot in a machine shop. You talked about business development as in like creating new stuff. In a machine shop, when you talk about business development, it's going out and meeting new purchasers. So more companies that buy things like this, and more people in the industry where you're trying to sell stuff. And so often business development involves eating a lot of lunch, talking, playing golf, doing those kind of things, so that you can even get them to send you a drawing so that you could send them back a quote. And so the business process here is RFQ, request for quote, quote, purchase order, we do our production, invoice, we get paid. As long as everything works, that's sort of how our business is going to get paid. That's how we're going to make money. Seems simple until you think about all those steps, right? All right, so in order to do this, your business is going to have to decide what industry you want to serve. All right, so these are notes for the assignment. And anybody got their computer open and can see the syllabus? What's our schedule? Oh, let me do it. I think I can do it. I think that's the lab syllabus. Here's the lecture syllabus. All right, so this is group project. This is the one we're doing now. This is this week. So we have a Wednesday next week also. There's a week in the middle of the term that there's no Wednesday. I think it's the one after next, but I'm not certain. It's on the schedule here. So next week. So these are things for your group to do for next week, because each group is going to have to do a 2-slide presentation, maybe 3. If you're really, what's the word? Nice to me. I don't know. If you really have to have 3 slides, you can put 3 slides. But I want 2 slides. And what I want you to have decided is where you would like to locate your business. That's one of the best reasons to start a company. The best reasons to start your own business is you get to decide where to put it. I used to have a consulting client. Their business was on the island of Kauai. And I had to go there a couple times a year to meet with them and do some consulting. Nice thing about Kauai is there are no hotels that are not beach resorts. So even when they put you up at the cheap local hotel, it's still a beach resort. So you get to decide where you would like to put your business, you should have some rationale for why that's this location you picked. And it could be because, hey, we want to go surfing every afternoon. It could be because there's low corporate taxes in that state. Who knew that was in a term, that was the main reason people chose a particular state? I'll let you guys figure it out. So you have some rationale for why you decided that particular state or that particular location. And so we're going to have a physical location too, not just have an idea of where we want to have our business. And we'll put this in the slides, but there's a commercial real estate website that's free to search on and has pretty good information. And please don't call the broker and ask them. Like if it says call for the rent or something like that, don't call them and ask them, because then they're going to think you're actually a customer and you're actually going to start a machine shop. But if you go to this website, it's called LoopNet, and I'll put it in the notes. But if you go to LoopNet, you can find out how much it costs to rent certain size commercial building in certain areas. And if you look for Worcester, and it'll tell you you can rent it or you can buy it. If you're buying it, then you're going to have to figure out how much it's going to cost to finance. Anybody know how to figure out how much it's going to cost to finance buying a building? Doesn't cost anything to figure it out. Just Google mortgage calculator. Type in what the sales price for the building is. Assume you can pay for it over 20 years. And guess what the interest rate is. I'd go with commercial is probably about 9 right now. But last year. But yeah, so you'll be able to locate where you want to put your business, decide what industry segment you're going to serve. This is for next week. And decide of each of the team members, what is that team member's role going to be, their primary role. Now, it's a startup. Everybody does all the stuff, but somebody's got to be responsible for each thing. Is that fair for next week for your team to have figured those steps out? So the other things we're going to have to figure out as we go through here is we're going to have to we'll do some practice on quoting the parts. And so quoting the part, to do that quoting, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to make it, how you're going to hold it, how much the tooling is going to cost, how much the material is going to cost, and how long it's going to take to do the making, right? Does that make sense? Turns out there's another big important step in quoting is how much is it worth to the customer? I years ago made some parts that I priced them based on the cost to make them, because that seemed like the reasonable way to price the parts. And we sold a bunch of those parts to this one particular customer. And years after that, the engineer who was ordering those parts said, each one of those pieces was going on a $20 million sailboat. So I probably should have charged more for the parts. That's all he was saying. So how much is it worth to the customer? But all right, so what do we got? We got 20 minutes left, right? Okay, at this point, I would like for the groups to convene. I have created an assignment for you on this. Where is Canvas? This is Canvas. Here it is. I've created an assignment for you on Canvas that is called, What Group Are You In? All right, so before you answer the questions on the assignment, and the question is, what group are you in? I think, who else is in your group? Now, there's a high probability that somebody's absent from lecture today. With statistically, it's a likely outcome that somebody's absent from lecture today. And so when you reach out to me, we'll find a group that you can fit in. Or if you reach out to me because you know that your friends are not already in a group with 6 people, because we did 5s. We did 5s and 6s, right? There's nobody who was still 4, correct? So if you know what group you want to go in and it doesn't already have 6 people, we can add you to that group. Otherwise, we'll find a group for you. So what group are you in? But we have to have some way to know which group is which, because you could say group far right-hand corner table, right? And that is a mouthful. I think it's the appropriate term. So, 1. Let's set in the bar. You are group 1. Group 2. 3. 4. 5. Is that all the groups on this half of the room? 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So you could be back right-hand corner or 12. Is there any table that doesn't know a group number there? Are you sure? There's no table that doesn't know what group number you are. Okay, so you should, at this moment, exchange contact information for the other people in your group, so you'll be able to communicate with them. And maybe pick a time to get together and decide those things. You can have virtual meetings, in-person meetings. Doesn't matter to me how you do your meeting, but you need to have had a group meeting for next time. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create the groups in Canvas. Groups, people. I'm going to create a group set. We had 12 groups, right? 12. Group set name. Groups. Allow self-stamp. 12 groups. Okay. So I have created a group listing. If you go to Canvas and you go to people, let me become a student. Home. Student view. If you go to people and you go to groups and you see group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 12, you can visit the group, I guess. I don't know. How do you, I think as my test student can't join a group. Does anybody know how to join a group? Okay. So go to this thing and join the group. It should allow you to. I can see all the groups. You guys can't. You can only, yeah. All right. So is that good? All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop the sharing and stop the StreamYard.